All right. So I have 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock. And I'd like to start out by asking Diane, could you give us the roll of who's on with us right now?
Pete, Trish, Charlie, Chief Jewett, Tina, yourself, Chief Alcadino, Terry, Nancy, Jeff Kozak, and Larry.
All right. So let's start with Trish, as we do, as always. Trish, could you give us a rundown of what you found or have learned this week?
Absolutely. So we've got 4 meetings, 2 yesterday, 2 today. So some of this is repetitive. As you know, we were waiting on some big deliveries of the PPEs, and they have arrived, and this was as of yesterday, and they were disseminating, where they had to go, which included security, evidently. They also reminded us that yesterday was the first meeting of in the governor's office for the Emergency Relief and Recovery Program. This is in addition to FEMA money, so more guidelines will come out as they continue to work on this. They also said they're tracking the COVID effects on law enforcement, fire, EMS, and they've added lawn care facility workers to that list. As of yesterday morning, we had 1,025 persons with COVID in New Hampshire, 249 persons recovered, 23 deaths attributed to COVID. They also said the local liaisons are working with the EOC and the EMDs now, as we've been in this a month now, working on the grant portals. That is how we actually apply for public assistance and funds. So as we get more guidance on this, Larry and I are kind of used to this, but there may be more instruction, and they said they'll do more training since nobody's ever had a pandemic that they've had to deal with. The Joint Information Command said they're dealing with social media trends, how to protect the homeless, lots of talk about unemployment. It's creating some issues. So they're going to do posts and encouraging others, including towns, that if we've got anything we can help on the positive end of things, that certainly do that. We also have 80 first responders that are in quarantine. 5 are staying in alternative lodging. They're picking up more PPEs, the National Guard, and they're going to distribute these to conservation officers and volunteer groups, because now they've got issues in backcountry searches and rescue missions. People are now going out since they're home not working and probably going into areas that they're not familiar with, and now they need to be rescued. They also talked about Eversource. Obviously, we had that storm, and as of yesterday morning, they were in the process of restoring power to the remaining couple of hundred customers without power, and hope that it would get done by last night. They shared that Unitil and New Hampshire Electric Co-op and Liberty Utilities all have 100% restoration. They also were developing security plans for the distribution of the PPEs, and they're actually now working on security plans for food distribution in certain areas. Again, that's becoming an issue. Reminding us to track costs, which obviously we're doing. The Police Chiefs Association is now keeping an eye on potential protests that may develop. I guess when people stay home, they think of things to do, and it might be protesting. They talked about safety and wellness, expanding the mission with respect to social distancing, decontamination, and other state agencies and locations, and will keep us updated on that. That was yesterday morning. The legal call yesterday. Again, you've heard us talk about campgrounds, and the Selectmen, you probably got what I sent out earlier, the new order on campgrounds. But this call was yesterday, and it says, what action can we take on campgrounds? And the answer was, we followed up. It's still under consideration, and clarification is anticipated from the governor's office. One town said that how does the emergency order work? In reference to people who are already staying in hotel rooms. And what about hotels that are continuing to take reservations? And this would even include like Airbnbs. And the answer was people who are already physically at a hotel, staying in a room, can stay. People who had reservations, however, cannot arrive and begin a stay. First responders, however, can stay in hotel rooms. They went on to say that the order does say in paragraph 5 that online reservations shall be suspended. They're not supposed to be doing that at all. There should only be phone-in reservations, so nothing online. They also talked about how we should conduct meetings online. And again, this is a legal call, talking about municipalities and what can we do. And one of the questions was also, can we count votes online? And the answer from the AG's office is we're still considering all options. One thing to think about is the restrictions that may not be lifted at the same time. And that's what they're saying. Some restrictions are going to be lifted depending on if it's the governor or the AG's office, and others may not be lifted. They said some other possibilities about town meetings are still being discussed. The guidance regarding absentee ballots actually may change, and they're going to be in touch about a possible approach and try to coordinate with the Attorney General's office along with the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Somebody else said, should we move our town meeting to May or June? Or should we do virtual on Zoom? And the answer was, again, it's a judgment call on your part as a municipality. But the best recommendation to do with elections was to postpone if you can. There was another comment, can we notify out-of-state second home owners that they should go home? And the answer was, state borders are not closed, and we've heard that before. The governor will not close the state borders. If they own property there, they do not need to go home. Out-of-state visitors should follow the Department of Health recommendation and self-quarantine for 14 days. So they followed it up with saying, if you're just going out of state, say to drop off or pick up something, that's allowed. Nobody's going to stop you. But if you're going to stay and you've got out-of-state plates, you're going to be expected to do a 14-day quarantine. Then this morning, Wednesday, so we've got the state EOC is still at full activation. They said that yesterday's press conference that the governor announced airports would receive $15.2 million from the CARES Act. They also said immediately available was $300 a week for workers in long-term care facilities. As of today now, we had 1,091 positive cases, 329 recovered. Unfortunately, deaths went up to 27, 163 hospitalized, and 10,756 negatives, with 73 tests still pending. They also talked about intelligence, and they're formulating a process to monitor statistics on unemployment and mental health rates. They're saying they're noticing now an uptick because of unemployment, causing people to now have some potential mental health issues. They said that some towns are closed to the public altogether, and some towns, their staff is still working. However, they're closed to the public. The health department said the mobile testing unit is out doing testing at various facilities that evidently had an outbreak. They didn't share where that was. They will also be doing testing in non-hospital entities that also have shown some outbreaks. The military reported that in the last 24 hours, the National Guard began set up at the Exeter Hospital and did a walkthrough there, potentially maybe for another alternative care site. The military also went to the Daniel Webster College to actually set up an alternate care site there. Logistics, they continue to ship out a number of PPEs to partners around the state of New Hampshire, and they also shipped out some to Maine and Vermont. In the operations portion, they said they completed isolation and quarantine process flow, and planning will be publishing some guidance and documents today. And not that this is probably the right part to insert this, but I know Chief Jewett and Chief Alcadino and EMD Foote also have individual correspondence and guidance on whether it's isolation, quarantine, or their process flow, and we might be able to incorporate some of this into what they have and make a fabulous, fabulous document that maybe even could be shared. Hopefully we never have to do this again, but you never know. They also said 16 first responders are positive, 76 first responders are in quarantine, and out of that, 6 are EMS, 48 are police, and 22 are fire. There are 9 members currently in alternative lodging, so they decided to not go home and infect the family or potentially infect the family, so they're in an alternative place. And there's still 8 lodging facilities available. They also talked about continuing to take the personal property equipment, personal property, the PPE orders from law enforcement, police, fire, and emergency management, reminding us that even though we feel like orders are starting to come in, that doesn't mean we should stop. We need to be prepared. They also continue to provide security for food bank deliveries and the trucks that have the PPEs. They said that JIC, the Joint Information Command, remains staffed, and social media trends are steady as of this morning. They're just monitoring them to make sure that we don't have an issue with the social media, because sometimes it does get out of hand. There was lots of conversation and praise regarding the press conference from yesterday afternoon. Some of you may have seen that. Sununu did a great job. They talked about the discussion about opening the economy and opening perhaps businesses and municipalities if possible. There's new stories focusing on the death count and stipends being given out to long-term care facilities, faculty workers, and that was a positive news story, which was great. They talked about the convenient MD, and they're going to start to test those individuals now who are working in long-term care facilities. Before, the state of New Hampshire works in agreement with the convenient MD for first responders, EMS, fire, and police. Now they're going to add long-term care facilities. They're still working on finishing a contact protocol, and Unified Command is working on another really large shipment that they'll share more information accordingly. That was this morning. Now at noon, let's see, we have news from yesterday. The Attorney General put out an alert. There's evidently a scam going on for aging adults, although none of us are aging, I'm sure. There's lots of fraud involved, and they're reminding everyone, be careful what you click on. And so even when you're out and about, talking to whether it's friends or family or online, remind people that this is a scam going on and don't necessarily click on anything. They talked about the Governor's Relief and Recovery called CARES Act, and they had another meeting today on that, so I'm sure we'll get more information on that. The Executive Order 2006, establishing CARES, this is different from FEMA, and they're going to get a clear understanding out to us as soon as they can. They talked about items that are upcoming in the executive order regarding campgrounds. They sent us a link, and I don't have that in front of me, but the bottom line is they've added some interesting pieces on essential workers. And they reminded us that this is a living document. As Chairman Matt has said many times, this is like a moving target. It's very fluid. Things change every day. So they've added that campgrounds can open, and there's no limits as long as it's RVs and tents. So if it's like some campgrounds have those little cottages, that does not apply to the campground definition. They also talked about in that emergency order other essential workers were considered to be construction, inspection and permits. They want those things to keep happening because that's one of the way our towns can survive, actually. So they added that to the list. They added janitorial and custodial to the list, that that obviously needs to happen in the kind of environment we're in. And again, that's published. I've got that posted on the emergency management page of our website, and I sent it to all the selectmen. Let's see. Also, one of the fire departments said, again, campgrounds, it's like a thorn in their side. Why did we decide that campgrounds are essential, and why did we say they can remain open? And the answer, again, was the governor did limit this to tents and RVs. Cabins are considered part of hotels and motels. Camping activities are considered to be recreational and short-term. They're outdoors and more circulation of fresh air, so they feel it's safe. The governor was looking at what neighboring states have been doing, and they have not closed their campgrounds either. And his answer is we're taking a regional approach. Another comment to do with campgrounds was, and this came from up in the White Mountains, that we're still attracting many out-of-staters, and how do we address this? And the answer was individuals can be told that they must self-quarantine for 2 weeks, which actually may be their entire length of their stay. They also said, they referenced the executive order, which will be passed out, and EMD Foote, I'm sure, is going to be getting it now that we just got it. He'll be getting it to the campgrounds. And the campgrounds have to inform the individuals of this. Also, another county said some of the individuals on the list of residences with positive results are now back to work, but they're still showing up on the list. And Fire Marshal Parisi said getting off the list takes 21 days. He reminded us that once individuals are 7 days from the first sign of symptoms and 72 hours of symptom-free without any fever-reducing aids, then they can go back into the public, and that the public health agents should be tracking this. They also said if individuals are 7 days since symptoms and 72 hours without any symptoms, they're supposed to let us know, like let's say if it was us in Newton, so that we can take them off our list, and otherwise they're going to remain on for 21 days. Another question from another town, again about campgrounds. And the question was, can those camping and campers in tents do anything when they are here? And the Attorney General said they cannot violate the 10-person rule. Bathhouses would need strict measures enforced by campgrounds, and no recreational halls should be open. There are concerns with workers that need to clean the bathhouses, so that was another issue to do with campgrounds. Another question regarding something called KN95 masks. And the FDA is allowing the import of them and wants to know if those could be issued to police officers. Are they the best or the next best thing to the N95 mask? And the answer from the fire marshal is that they're going to get back to him with a little bit more research. So they didn't want to say, yes, they're definitely safer to use or as safe to use. Exeter wanted to know about farmers markets, the status of them. And they are allowed as essential business. Is it a violation of no more than 10 people? And other entities would also like to hold events, so would that be similar? And the AG's office said, again, they'll look into it a little bit more. However, farmers markets are considered essential because they are selling food items. Antiques, however, are not considered essential. So if somebody wanted to open a little antique flea market type of thing, that's not essential. There was also comments that Rockingham County is now considered a. And is there any discussion on contact tracing? As you've probably heard in the media, other states are doing this. And the fire marshal said when someone tests positive, the public health does do contact tracing. So we're already doing this in New Hampshire. And then there was a question, a follow-up. If we reopen New Hampshire after May 4th, what will our message be to the public? Will we still be able to do contact tracing after we open? In other words, can we keep track of where we've got issues with COVID? And the answer was, this is something that public health has been doing since the very beginning of this, and they're going to continue to do it as we move forward, even if we do, as they say, reopen New Hampshire May 4th. There was another comment about, I have residential children in camps. Are they allowed? They are scheduled to open June 13th. Can we tell them they cannot open? And this was kind of like a YMCA type camp. And the answer was, campgrounds, again, need to practice social distancing. Per the executive order, they will need to self-quarantine, and reminded us again that cabins do not qualify to be open. And then there was talk about the maps that are updated to show current total cases. And the question is, could there be a version that shows active versus total? And Director Harper said she's going to reach out to the health department to see that if this is possible. And that's about it. The only thing I wanted to add about the campgrounds is, after this all came out, we did get a call at the EOC from one of our local campgrounds because they had already heard about this. I reiterated that, yes, this campground issue came out, that EMG Foot will come out and give you something in writing, that there is a 10-person rule. She asked about, could they do a campground cleanup activity? And again, if it's more than 10 people, that's not recommended. It shouldn't be advertised as an event. But I'm sure EMD Foot will explain it more when he comes and drops off the paperwork. And I think that's about it. Other than, I sent an action plan for the EOC. I did speak with Chief Jewett and Chief Alcadino about their plans. We might be able to put something together that might even be able to be used by other towns. They've done such a good job at putting all this stuff together, and it will give us groundwork moving forward, depending on where we go with this pandemic. And that's it.
All right. Thank you once again. For those who were paying attention today, you probably saw on that map that Trish was referring to, Newton did go from the 1 to 4 category to 5 to 9. So all I would kind of reinforce here, if your neighbors are anything like me, like my neighbors, I told them I don't know who that is or why that is. I don't have any information other than that map. So I don't want people to think we're getting like a daily roll of, Joe Smith, Mike Jones, that sort of thing. So unfortunately, it's going up. It might go up a lot more, but there is, as I said, there seems to be a little bit of a light at the end of this tunnel. So I think somebody quoted, I think it was Sununu quoted, Winston Churchill. So this is not the beginning of the end or anything like that. It's the end of the beginning. So we'll take that for what it is.
Right.
So the next topic I wanted to discuss, and this isn't an easy topic to discuss, and you'll know, excuse me, why in a minute. But I'm gonna start by way of background, and then I'll give you my opinion, and then I'll invite the board to share their opinions, and then we can decide what we want to do. As many people remember, if they were in the meeting March 17th, I believe it was, because it was St. Patrick's Day, and we voted for and I've been calling them the displaced employees in town. So these are folks who, because of the closures of the town buildings, they have been displaced in terms of their ability to do their job. When that happened, the first thing we did is we started asking people, is there a way for you to get plugged in at home, work from home? Had those discussions with department heads, and we realized there were some people that just did not have that ability or had a reduced ability to do so. So what we did in that March 17th meeting is we voted to pay those folks as if they were working those hours and indicate on their timesheets that it was COVID-19 related, that, let's say they were 15-hour employee and 15 hours were to COVID-19. The reason we were doing that is because there is a hope in, personally, I don't think there's any other way to phrase this, but there's a hope that we, along with every other town in New Hampshire and all 50 states, will be eligible to receive reimbursement from the government at some time in the future for that time. So that's the reason I voted in favor of letting those folks do that. I'll be totally honest with you and transparent, on March 17th, I never thought we'd still be in a position of being closed on April 15th. But as I keep saying, fluid situation, moving target. We sit here on April 15th. I think a lot of us are looking at April 30th as kind of a key date for the next round of decision making, but it could go even longer than that. Now, as we sit here, you're probably like me, you read the paper, you watch the news. Several towns in New Hampshire have furloughed people displaced by the closures of, essentially non-essential roles is what they call it. So they've been doing furloughs. They've also, let's face it, again, you have neighbors too. There are people in my neighborhood who have been laid off, who have lost their jobs because their jobs are closed as well. It's not an easy time. It's not easy decision making, but there comes a time when you're in a position like we're in, and you have to look in terms of being fiscally responsible. Now, a lot of people have said, well, these jobs are all budgeted, right? We all voted, whatever that was, March 10th, the budget passed. But we voted, I guarantee most of us, when we voted, had no idea we'd be in this position right now. We voted for the budget. Well, that budget is in a position now where the longer this thing goes on, the better chance of that budget being blown, simply because essential roles had to be expanded, non-essential roles lessened. So I go back to that phrase, fiscally responsible. We're in a position where we have to look. If you're the average taxpayer in this town, do you think we should be paying people who aren't able to work? Okay? So that crosses your mind. The other thing that crosses your mind is this isn't really a good position. These people depend on these paychecks. Can we help them out? Well, my opinion, again, in a minute here, we'll go to the rest of the board, but my opinion is we've tried to help those people out. We've paid them, I believe it's 2 pay periods they were paid. Now, if you could guarantee me, again, my personal opinion, if you could guarantee to me that it would only be 1 more pay period, I'd probably be okay with that. But there's no guarantee. I hear the president talking like this thing's almost done, but I hear the governor still talking in terms of months. So does it make sense to continue? Does it make fiscal sense to continue to pay people for months and months in this situation? So I can tell you this is a public meeting. We're not identifying anybody in this meeting. The law protects our right to do that, nor do I think we should identify the positions in this meeting because, let's face it, it's a small town. You know the position, you know the person. But I do think we should talk about this in concept and potentially vote on it tonight. And I would just, ask the rest of the board what their thoughts are on this subject.
Matt, you go second. Oh, go ahead.
Was it Larry?
Yeah. So my thoughts on it would be is we're going to cover them to, I think, the 26 pay period and then make that decision. Well, we're going to make the decision before that. I would like to offer up, because there are some town buildings open in the state, is to offer the employee to come to work, and then if they don't feel comfortable coming to work, then we have no options to say, okay, then it will be the unemployment line until this totally blows over. But I think in our town building, we're so spread out, and they each have their own office. It's not going to be an issue. And I think we're only talking one or two more personnel in there anyway, and they're separated by a good over 6 feet.
So I think we've already done that, Larry. And the problem is they can come into the building, but the customers can't come into the buildings.
Right. So the only customers that would be going into the building would be for the tax work, and she's already dealing with that on an outside basis. So there's a couple more that, 2 or 3 more that can probably come back to work if they want to, that are not, that we can offer them that position if they want.
Yeah,
without
but what
naming
doesn't
names,
make
it's
sense.
kind of hard, but.
Right, I know, but what doesn't make sense to me, Larry, is people were talking about interact with customers. So how would we have them at work if there were no customers to interact with?
So there's actually two of them who don't interact with customers, and one who does, but is again on the outside making appointments. So there's really no one except for one person who deals with customers, but that one has changed, and I don't know the new format yet until I talk to that department.
Yeah,
I know.
would argue, I'm looking at the list, and they all interact with customers as part of their job.
Okay, all right.
I'm just concerned about the safety of that, about coming in and out, more people coming in and out of any space that we can't keep an eye on. I mean, the social distancing, a lot of the studies are showing more than 6 feet, especially inside air. I think, health and safety, to end this, we have to be very careful. So I'm concerned how that would work.
Yeah, and I would correct something I just told you, Larry. So so people should know there are 4. So it's 4 part-timers, no full-timers. 3 interact with customers. 1 requires, and again, we don't want to identify the role, but this person's job is essentially eliminated due to the fact the buildings aren't in use. So I won't say any more than that because people will know exactly who it is. But I would echo Kate too. Is we'd be adding to, a sort of risk factor. We should know that what Larry was talking about is we've talked. At least one of us, sometimes most of us, have had conversations with their department heads about them being able to do their job remotely. And thus far, we've been told they are unable to do so. So that was Kate and Larry. Anybody else on the board want to jump in?
Yeah. Sorry. So my opinion is, while it would be great and wonderful to say let's just close it to the public and allow the town employees to work in the building, the problem with that is those town employees come in contact with other people outside of work, which means there's still that risk of exposure. And the whole point of closing the town buildings is to minimize interactions. And the town buildings are small. That town hall and where those offices are very close together. So they may have individual offices, but it's still tight quarters, and the risk of not being able to meet the guidelines for within 6 feet, etc., may not always work out well. And again, without the public coming into the building, a lot of the work that they would do were they in the building isn't going to be needed to be done. The other point that Matt made that I agree with is that while certain departments did budget for the payroll of the employees, the other departments that had to increase their payroll because of the COVID and the actual added work due to the COVID, their budgets are not inclusive of all that extra man hours. So there has to be some give as well as take.
Yeah, and adding on to that, even though no one wants to furlough anyone, this is, like Matt said, a very fluid and unknown situation, I believe. I saw 2 articles in the paper about towns being concerned about being able to even pay essential services. I mean, that hopefully will never come to that, but this is the time to be very careful and frugal with money, and it's a balancing act if you want to help everyone, but I would concur it's a good idea to consider these furloughs.
Charlie, did you have anything you wanted to?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I do. Well, I think we should go with what we have right now. I don't think we should change anything. I think we should keep paying our people, the dedicated people, for us. I mean, we're talking 4 individuals. But I also, in the same thing, is I would like to see that the people at the transfer station get an extra $50 a week for a stifle pay, for the simple reason that they didn't run out on us. They're all there. They're doing the job. And they're exposed to so many different people. And like you said, there was cases in town today. So, you know, they could be running into people. So we should be taking care of them. As well as I think we should take care of our employees. I figured out the money. It's only $1,800 a week.
So it's only $1,800 a week, but $1,800, how many weeks is it going to be for? Is the question.
Well, the thing about it is what we have to do is we're like everybody else. We have to sit and wait and watch.
And it may not only be $1,800 a week for the employees that would get furloughed. But what is the increase in payroll for the other departments due to the COVID? It's more than $1,800 a week.
Well, yeah, if you added the 4 people at the transfer station,
and
that would be $200 a week more. So you're talking $2,000.
We don't have unlimited funds here to work with. We had a very tight budget to begin with. So to try to pay employees who aren't working, plus pay employees who are working extra hours that were not budgeted for, plus pay bonuses to other employees. It's like, where is all this money going to come from?
Well, if we override the budget, then we turn around and we call the DRA and see if we can get some money, some of the money that we saved, to cover ourselves. Because we have the override budget.
Lisa, what other departments are you referring to as far as over expenditure on budgets?
What is likely to happen is our first responders. EOC is operating 12 hours a day now?
Yeah, but we're going to be covered 75%.
By who?
We hope.
By FEMA.
You don't know that
we
for
hope.
Sure. We hope.
99.9 probably, yeah.
So can you share that with us? Is there something where they guaranteed that to you? Because from what I'm hearing, we apply for it, and if it all works out, then we get money back at some point in the future. That's what I'm hearing.
The ruling is they're going to cover expenditures that weren't incorporated or foreseen, or I don't know how you want to put it, scheduled into your operational budget. So EOC and supplies are not a typical budget item as far as a disaster, pandemic, whatever. So it would be 75% covered. No, the only other department that's affected by this is the fire department, and he has a policy and a schedule for the past year or so that he puts on 2 guys from 7 to 3. That 7 to 3 will not be covered, but he's putting them on 7 to 7. The 3 to 7 will be covered, and the Saturdays and Sundays will be covered because it had direct result of the pandemic. Why we had to add the extra personnel is to cut down on exposure to other personnel. So we kept the ambulance crew on longer to keep people away from going to the calls, and the same 2 individuals on a daily basis. So the only thing that is in foreseen covered, and Trish can back me up on this, is his extra hours, the EOC, all the supplies, Tim's extra work in bookkeeping, but everybody else, because it's a budgeted department and most of us are working, that they're not going to probably cover that part of all this.
Yeah, I guess my concern is I understand what you're talking about as what you're talking about. I mean, the word you have to use is eligible, right? Everything you just described is what's eligible for reimbursement.
Correct.
I haven't seen or heard anything yet that guarantees we're going to get the money back. Do you have something that you've seen as EMD that is what I hear? I read the news and I hear these conferences, and it sounds like, fingers crossed, it's all going to come out.
Well, it goes on past experience and experience work with FEMA for the past 12 years. They cannot and will not leave. I'm going to say the whole country now because it's not a New Hampshire issue, high out and dry for that. You're not going to hear it on the conference. You're not going to hear the governor saying that. You probably will be soon, but they do tell us in these meetings and through phone calls, keep track of all your spending, all your documents, all your hours, and, you know, it's 75%, and they're going to try to get 100%. You know, I heard the president say that in New York, you will not pay anything. You're going to be 100% covered in New York. So, I mean, it's up to you guys, but I just want to put a little light on the budgets that, you know, people feel that are getting threatened to be blown away, which they're not going to.
And if I could just say something to reiterate what Larry said. So EOC expenses, payroll, and purchases is always covered under every single emergency that we've worked under, and it's covered at 75%. So payroll for EOC is covered. Extra payroll that police and fire had to put on because we proved, that's why I've asked everyone to give me their actual hours before the pandemic versus now so we can show what the input is. What we probably won't get, and again, this hasn't been in on any call yet, is the other people that are restricted at home because they couldn't work. We may not get 75% of that, but we may. The only thing we know for sure from past experience is EOC, fire, police that have to put on extra because of a pandemic, and supplies that we've had to purchase because of this will be covered at 75%. And now they're saying there's hope that it actually will be covered at 100%.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's key here is that past experience, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, for you guys has been storms, which is localized. This is a global pandemic, and obviously the other countries aren't giving us money, but you know, this U.S.-based pandemic, which all 50 states are going to be in line.
We could look at waiting till the 4th, which is just a few weeks away.
Could.
And revisiting then. And I am not really, this is a personal opinion, hopeful that this is going to end soon at all. And a lot of municipalities are going to have to really tighten their purse strings as hard as it is to keep afloat. Because there are going to be unintended things we haven't thought about. So.
The only thing I would say is if we extend any further, we need to look at dates based on pay periods, because what we can say right now is the people in question are getting a check Thursday. That's payday, right? Thursday. So,
yes.
So they are. No matter what gets decided tonight, they're getting a check Thursday. Is what it comes down to. So if we pick a date in the future, we have to make sure it's a date, you know, reflective of the deadline for payroll. So that's the only thing I would add to that. So, I mean, and I would just go back to what I said at the beginning of this thing. This is a difficult thing to talk about because you're taking money out of people's pockets, but I just think we are physical agents of the town, and sometimes you have to make these decisions. I have to put myself in the shoes of the voters, and there's a lot of people out there in this town right now who just aren't getting paid. They had jobs, and they were told they don't have jobs because of COVID-19 response. There are people who have taken reductions in pay, and they're all saying the same thing, that it is, for right now, we hope very shortly you'll be back on the job. But the other thing they keep saying is, back in business is not going to be a light switch, it's going to be a dimmer. So, for instance, if you own a restaurant and you're allowed to reopen the restaurant on May 4th, you're not probably going to have 100% of your staff on May 4th because you have to wait and see what business is going to be like. So, anybody else get anything or want to make a motion to any effect?
That, and to add on to what you just said, Matt, the one bright light here is that these positions will still be there after the pandemic, whereas a lot of the people in town don't even have pretty much that guarantee, if you will. And we can practically guarantee these positions will still be there when the pandemic is over.
Yeah, but look at how hard it is for us to turn around and get an employee. It's real hard because we don't pay nothing. So it's hard for us to get an employee. So, you want to at least take care of these people while this is going on to a certain extent.
We just have to look at it from both sides, though, Charlie.
Oh, I do. I do.
Not just,
believe me,
we can't just look at it from the point of the employees. We also have to look at it from the point of the residents and the voters and the taxpayers in town.
Lisa, I wouldn't have gone where I wouldn't have said what I said if I didn't really think it out. Because I am a wicked conservative. I turn around and I like to save every penny I can. And I'd like to see the town save every penny they can. It's just that this is a situation, and they didn't bring it on. It's not their fault. And I think we should be a little bit loyal to them. They've been loyal to us.
We did not bring it on either. The town didn't bring it on. The state didn't bring it on.
Well, I guess I'm working on compassion.
I'm compassionate.
Yeah, hold on. Just really quick. Can I jump in here? Because I just heard that word and I've got to respond. I guarantee for you, there's no one on this board of selectmen who is not compassionate. Okay, there's 5 of us. All 5
Matt, I
of
wasn't
us
saying
are
that.
Compassionate. I
wasn't
think
saying
you kind of indicated that, but I just wanted to get that out. I think Larry had a comment.
Well, it wasn't the intent.
My comment
it wasn't the intent.
My comment is it is still up in the air. Before I take a vote that I know will be knowledgeable, I'd like to see a list of those employees and how we're going to do it if employee A is working 10 hours at home and then he's not working for 10 hours and he's scheduled for 20. Are we still paying him the 10? Or is he going to go for unemployment for 10? Or are we just going to get rid of him for the 20 and he has to go for unemployment for 20?
So, Larry,
if we have an employee, I believe if depending on what the board decides, but I think what we're considering is if we have an employee that is able to work part of their hours but not all of their hours, then they are having reduced hours. Basically, we're talking about only paying for actual work done.
And that's the heart of it. I think that we have to realize is we're talking about a concept, and I think the concept needs to be we're going to pay you for work done. if you didn't do the work or could not do the work because of COVID-19, then we won't be paying you.
So we're going to split it up that the town pays 10 hours and they have to go seek unemployment for 10 hours, correct?
Well, it's up to them.
Up to
We're
who?
going to, it's up to the employee.
If they go
So
to
if-
unemployment.
Yes.
Wait.
So
Are we just talking about a tiny amount of non-essential part-time employees only being furloughed temporarily? Isn't that what we're discussing now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been discussing.
Okay, just checking.
There's just like,
So I mean, if your typical hours worked, Larry, were 15 hours, okay,
correct.
and you're able to work 5 hours, I don't know how
right.
you would be able to. People on this list, you know, let's be clear, they're really either working or they're not, because most of them, I would say 3 out of the 4 just can't work because they can't work from home. But if you're able to work any hours, then we would pay you for the hours worked. And if you're
no one's answering the question. So if I'm 15 hours and I'm working 5 at home, do I go to unemployment for the 10 hours?
That's up to you. You're eligible.
I don't know. I
It
don't know
depends
what you
on
mean
if
by
they-
it's up to me. You're giving me
When
no
you get
choice
to
because you're not paying me the 15 hours no more, so I have to make up the 10 hours somewhere. So I'm going to unemployment for the 10. I just want to clarify on that.
Well,
Yeah,
when you
that's
get
up to the
unemployment,
individual
you put in,
employee.
Right, but you put in for unemployment, you put in all the jobs you have, part-time, full-time, 3 part-times, and they come up with the formula, and I think they actually add something on because it's COVID to determine what you get in unemployment. So we
I
don't
would
know.
just like to see a list with the employee's name, how many hours they're doing at home, and how many hours they're going to be applying to unemployment for. Because I
We sent you that last week, Larry.
Yeah, we have the list.
No.
You got it last week, Larry.
But everyone's unemployment will be different dependent on what other part-time jobs they may or may not have. Too. I don't know if we know exactly.
Yeah, I guess what should be clear is, Larry, we don't apply for unemployment for anyone. So we are going to pay them for the...
I know the individual applies for unemployment. I'm not stupid.
I'm not saying you are, Larry.
But I just want to be accurate across the board with all the employees, that's all. Because I see problems arising, and I just want to make sure that this meeting should really take place in non-public, not public.
Well, we had it in non-public on Monday, and we decided we would continue the public portion because this portion has to be in public if we're going to vote on something.
Okay.
This is Diane.
Diane, go ahead.
I'd like to offer a compromise. You're already into a pay period at this point. You're
correct.
Okay, so what if you were to pay for this period up till April 25th, and then either come back to this or say as of April 26th, which is the start of a new pay period, you would tell them that, you only get paid for the hours you worked, and furlough those that are not able to work.
And I think that was one of the options on the table because we wanted to leave enough time to notify department heads and their employees. So we're not going to do anything as of tomorrow. It would be as of next pay period. At least that's what was proposed.
Okay.
All right. So if there's no more discussion, I'm going to put it out there and put my neck on the line and make a motion. I move to institute a furlough and or reduction in hours effective April 27th for non-essential employees unable to perform. I'm sorry?
Your pay period starts April 26th.
Okay, so let me rephrase, start from the beginning. I move to institute a furlough and or reduction in hours effective April 26th for non-essential employees unable to perform their duties caused by town building closures as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to notify the affected employees in writing by April 24th, 2020.
Is there a second? All right, so I'll second it. Okay, we're going to, any discussion?
Is there, so is it effective immediately? Is there a 2-week notice? Can we give it to
Kate, the motion said to be effective April 26th, which would be the next pay period. That's 11 days from now. And we would notify the employees in writing by the Friday before. Also, it gives us time. If something miraculously happens in this time period and it's no longer needed, then we have the opportunity to retract it. But based on the fact that I myself have been hearing discussions of extending closures, not just school closures, but other closures until May 30th, this does not look like it's ending anytime soon. And I need to do what I think is the most fiscally responsible for the town, and that's why I made this motion.
Well, in the motion, how about if you use the word reconsider on that date instead of say it's effective? How about reconsider?
Because
things could change.
Just like our last meeting when I rescinded a motion from a meeting before, if the circumstances change, we can move to rescind the previous motion. So there's no need to put reconsider in this motion. If nothing changes, then the motion stands. If something changes, we make a new motion.
Well,
yeah, and I think what is baked into that motion is the time it's going to take us to notify people, the department heads and the people. And quite obviously, we have a lot of these meetings right now. So any time between now and then, if something miraculous happens, we can certainly call another vote.
How long have these employees been on paid leave in a sense, even though it's not official, where they've been being paid for work they're unable to do so far?
So essentially, I believe it was March 16th or 17th was when we locked the doors.
Okay, so
it's a month. Yep.
You ready to take a vote?
Would it be
I'm just about to ask if
2 weeks?
Kate, say again.
When they get, let's say, so the date comes, someone can rescind the motion if things wildly change, but do they get a 2-week notice, or it's like that's it, boom, you're done?
Well, I think it's in the motion when they're going to get noticed by, and then we have the power to rip that up if need be. So, but any other discussion? All right, roll call vote. Lisa?
Aye.
Lisa's an aye. Charlie?
No.
Okay, Larry?
No.
Kate?
I'm actually going to be, sorry, a nay for now. I want to revisit this.
Okay, so I was an aye. The motion fails. So any other motions on the table? No other motions?
I think no other motion. I just think we need to present more information on the cost, where we're losing money, where we're going to get money, and some other compromise where the nays feel like, okay, maybe this occurs, but they get 2 weeks paid leave from that date. Just something.
Yeah, I think all that's been on the table. So, I mean, it is what it is. The motion didn't pass, but it is what it is. The information's out there, but, people just voted in different ways. That's all it is.
Can't we make the motion again in 2 weeks?
That's up to anybody on the call who wants to make the motion in 2 weeks. So.
And I'd like to put on the record that I urge members of the public to actually speak to their selectmen, email, phone, text, whatever. Let us know their opinion.
Yeah, and I just underline the fact that, I'll use the word that was just used. I have compassion for people. I think we all do, like I said. But it's just a situation where it's business. And business is hurting right now. And I voted for a business decision, not for a personal decision for anyone. So I think we can leave this topic now. Any other topics for this call?
So I'm not sure how you left it with Kim, the bookkeeper here. Because are you saying that you're going to keep paying the employees their regular pay as though nothing has changed? Is that a correct statement?
Exactly. So status quo. So just as they've done the last, I believe it's 2 pay periods, they should enter their normal hours with the COVID-19.
Okay.
Matt, I believe the last motion was until April 27th, so somebody does need to make a motion in order for it to carry forward beyond that.
Yeah, that's true. So sometime we could do it right now, but sometime before, was it April 26th, Diane corrected us on, is the bookkeeper needs to know for the next pay period, not the one that's getting paid tomorrow, but for the next one, she needs some sort of motion from us as to what she's going to do. So we could do it right now, or we could do it at a later meeting.
Yeah, but it would have to be done at some point next week, at the latest.
Yeah, because we wouldn't meet in time. So anybody want to make a motion right now? Okay. So we'll need some sort of, put it on the agenda, Diane, for a Tuesday.
The 21st, okay.
Yep. So just so Kim has the right direction.
Okay.
So status quo as of tonight, but Tuesday we'll entertain the motion to
do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
When might we actually see a check being reimbursed to us? Any ideas?
I'm sorry, say again?
When might a check actually come in to reimburse the town? It's going to be weeks, months, all these checks that we're supposed to get for reimbursement?
Could be months.
Months, okay.
Yeah,
we'll know more once we start working with what they call the PA information, we'll know more. But because it's still in what they consider the beginning stages, it usually takes a while.
All right. Any other topics for tonight?
This is Diane. I do want to inform you that I received a voicemail call, I think it was Monday, from a concerned resident about the campground's opening. Now, the resident did not leave a name or telephone number. I just want you to be aware that this person expressed their concern. They didn't tell me who they were or whatever. Okay.
So I guess if they were to call and reach you,
yeah,
I guess the board can correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess the answer is it's a governor's decision at this point.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
The only other thing I have.
You can call the governor.
Yeah.
Give him the governor's phone number.
Okay, the only other thing I have is the public minutes from Friday, April 10th.
All right. So could somebody make a motion?
I will move to accept the public minutes from April 10, 2020.
Second.
Okay. Seconded by Charlie. Let's go around. Charlie?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
And Matt's an aye. So that's unanimous. All right, anything else?
Matt, this is Tricia. I have one thing.
Sure.
And maybe we'll leave this on a positive upbeat. In talking to so many other towns, I would like to, give a that a boy or an applaud, or I'll even give my Dunkin' Donuts $10 card that you guys gave me to our cable guy, James. He's doing an unbelievable job, again, in a fluid situation that's changing, and really updating your minutes and these vocals that we're doing way better than the other towns. And I just think he needs that a boy.
That's awesome. The cable, he's doing that?
It's a combination. Okay, so there are certain things that I do, and there's certain things that Jamie does.
Okay.
So let's give 2 attaboys.
Okay.
So to Diane and Jamie.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. So anything else? All right, at 7:06, can we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
That's Charlie's second. By Lisa's the second. I'm not going to go around. I'm sure we're all ready to adjourn. So let's call it 5.
Yep.
All right. We'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you for your time.
Yep. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.